What if we could like subtract being nice from our lives? Seriously, like just subtract it. Just like two minus one is one, like just no more nice. I'm Nell Derek Debevoise Dewey, and I talk about subtracting to succeed. And we are going to talk about just that with the brilliant Amira Barger, who is 2 days into a book launch called The Price of Nice. Hallelujah, Amen, Amira. Thank you for writing this.
Thank you for having me and being in conversation with me. It has been a journey to get here, and I'm just so excited that it has come to fruition finally.
Finally, yeah, book journeys are, they're journeys. So congratulations on making it
Thank
through.
you.
Really fun to be here talking about this and really such an important thing. I mean, there's
Mm.
so many threads to your work, right? Whether it's Bell Hooks and that lineage or Charles Duhigg and that
Right.
lineage or Chomsky. I mean, wow, what a job you've done of pulling giants together into your own brilliance. Give us a little bit of the story of how you got here. Like, I know some of the hiccups that happen, but kind of give us the narrative through life to this book.
Ooh, through life to this book.
No big
So
deal. Just
many
that.
layers. I know, right? It's like, oh
Just
my gosh, let
just the
me fit
10-second
my
version, the TikTok
life
version.
story into a neat little package. Let me summarize 39 years right now. Hold on. A few layers and dimensions that really influenced this book. I am the second eldest of 8 children, but the oldest girl. That matters.
That matters.
The oldest girl,
Hmm.
that there's a whole persona to us, and it's true. And I'm the family manager. I carried a lot of weight, you name it. My parents were ministers on a
Mm.
tiny island. So I was originally born in San Diego, California, but then at 4 years old was moved to the tiny island of Guam, USA, where America's Day begins. It is 30 miles long and 8 miles wide. So if you grew up in a small town, you have an idea of what my upbringing was like. And those are some pretty significant dimensions of what
Mm.
shaped my upbringing, particularly the element of being the eldest daughter and being in a family so deeply devoted to faith. My parents were
Mm.
evangelical Christian ministers, and this idea of sitting pretty silently and playing nice was very common. And I will say, while I shrunk who I am for such a
Mm.
long time, I've
Mm.
always been me. And what I mean by that is that I heard as a child quite a bit, don't put a question mark where your parents or God puts a period. And I was a child with big questions. I would challenge adults. I would disrupt. I would push the envelope. And someone was always trying to put baby in a corner. And I was often in trouble
Mhm.
because I've always been me. And I learned very early on to shrink parts of who I am. And that's part of what brought me to a place of writing a book about the price of nice.
Yeah. So beautiful. So well put. That's amazing. Thank you. And that shrinking, right, is so relatable, I think, for women, for all kinds of under-recognized folks who, for whatever reason, identity or experience, it is dangerous or scary or wrong
Right.
or trouble to be seen and noticed, right? And so people shrink, which is such a loss to the greater good. We know we need us all.
Is it's one of the prices of nice is the loss of opportunity and potential. The world doesn't get to
Mhm.
know the fullness of you, and we will
Mm.
never experience the fullness
Mm.
of you or I when we shrink. And we could go really big. There's also the tax on our humanity and dignity, but one of the
Oh
key
yeah,
costs,
those.
yeah, right?
Yeah.
No
Oh
small
yeah.
thing. But one of the keys is I think we miss out on the potential to really know who
Mm.
you are as
Mm.
a person when you shrink.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you mentioned as well in preparing for this conversation that there was a really personal kind of affront and kind of shock that provoked you to face this all and deal with how you're approaching your leadership and your niceness and your, well-being as a human. Will you share that?
Yeah, there are usually a couple stories I tell about what brought me to this moment. The one I want to share with you today, it involves my daughter because I'm thinking
Hmm.
about her.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it also ties to the workplace. But in 2022, I was sitting with then she would have been 9, my
Mm,
then 9-year-old.
mm,
She's now
mm.
12 and a half. The half is
Looks very
very
different.
important.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, it
Yes,
is.
that's the half ages. They get very serious the older they get about that. But we were sitting down and we were watching history unfold. The first Black woman nominated to the Supreme Court, Ketanji Brown Jackson, now Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, was going through her Senate Judiciary hearing
Mm,
committees. And I really wanted this to be a moment of pride. I wanted my
mm,
daughter to see possibility. And so we were very intentional as a family about sitting her down to watch the
mm,
hearings with us over the days that they happened. But instead, I felt like it was mired in misogyny, as opposed to the pride and the moment that I wanted it to be.
mm.
She saw power and people in power trying to shrink a woman who had earned her place 1,000 times over
In
and
heels.
in heels, right? And with children and with, all the things that are put on the shoulders of women.
Mhm.
And at one point during the hearings, Audrey, that's my daughter's name, she looked at me and she goes, "Why is he interrupting her? And why isn't anyone doing anything about it?"
Yes,
And she was
Audrey.
talking about, yes, Senator Ted Cruz was asking his series of questions in the moment that she asked me
Mm,
this.
mm.
And, she also asked then, can I say a word that I'm not supposed to? And I was intrigued. So I was like, yes, what is it? And she says, isn't he kind of being a jerk? And I know. It's like, oh, that's so cute that she thinks jerk is, I guess when you're 9, jerk is a bad word, fine.
Kind of, yeah, a
But
little edgy, a little
a little
edgy.
edgy. But, she didn't have the vocabulary for systemic oppression or workplace microaggressions. And this was Ketanji Run's workplace, right? This
Right?
is where they
For
work, this is
sure.
their job. But my little 9-year-old could feel the wrongness of
Mm,
that display
mm.
in that moment. And so I found myself, what I told her and how I responded in that moment was a quote from Bell Hooks, who you mentioned. And Bell Hooks wrote that sometimes people try to destroy you not because they don't see your power, but because they do and they don't want it to exist. And we had that little lesson with our 9-year-old that day. And what Ketanji Brown Jackson had to do. The contortionist act is how I remember it, of
Yeah.
like performing grace while absorbing insults to her intelligence, her personhood. That wasn't new, right? We've seen that if you're a person in the world, and especially if you have a job, you've seen this outlie or outplay. And it
Yeah.
was really a masterclass in survival. And I don't
Mm,
think that
mm,
survival should be the price of success. And those mental gymnastics, I don't want that for my daughter. I don't want that for you. I don't want that for me or for any of us. And so, one last thing on this. Later, I
please.
wrote about that experience, and
Mm,
I put an article in San Francisco Gate where I live, and CBS called and said, "Hey, mom and daughter, we want to talk to you live about your feelings in this moment. It is historic. Let's hear
yes.
about that moment where she called Ted Cruz out." And so Andrea Borbo was the reporter at the time. She looked at
Yep.
my daughter and said, "When Justice Jackson was being treated that way, what did you think and feel
Mm,
about Ted Cruz?"
mm.
And my 9-year-old, with a level of nerve that many adults are trying to grow into, looked that reporter dead in the face and said, "Ted Cruz is a bastard."
She found
I
her
was like,
words. She
wrap
found her
it up.
word.
My job here is done. I have created a little girl who will not shrink, who will grow into a woman. who will not shrink, my work here is done. And that is the heart of a whole book that I wrote. This book is essentially my answer to my daughter's questions.
Mhm. So beautiful, Amira. Love that. I have to look up that clip. I have to find that on YouTube. I hope that made the
Oh yeah.
air.
It's hours of Senate hearings and whatnot, and yeah, yeah.
No, no, I want to see your daughter saying that on
Oh my God.
CBS. I saw enough of the Katanji
Right,
confirmation.
right,
I
right.
don't
It's like,
need
no,
to
I want to
relive
see the
that.
little
No.
9-year-old who has the nerve of a woman who has seen some things.
Uh-huh. I want to see post nice subtraction media. That's what
That
I'm
part.
going for.
Uh,
Amazing. So get in, the book is amazing and everyone will buy it and the link will be here to support it and get behind you and read it themselves cover to cover because that's important. And there's again such rich underpinning to all of your thoughts and ideas. But give us the on-air version. What does it mean? What is it costing us each and each other when we don't subtract this BS of niceness?
yeah. The most important thing is that the antithesis of nice is not mean. That's too easy. That's what people go to. I didn't
Mm.
write a whole book asking people to be mean. I did
You
not do
didn't?
that.
Okay. I
I didn't
did
spend
check that
20
with your PR
years.
person before getting on with
Right.
you. I was like, is this about being mean? Because I
Right,
don't want to talk
right.
about that. Come on,
People
Amira.
have literally asked me that. And I was like, no, I didn't spend 20 years unpacking socialization and patterns and come up with be mean. The antithesis of nice is nerve. And nerve, because nerve is boldness, it's audaciousness. And I do think that the cost of continuing to play nice, and I think why we play nice is because we are addicted to comfort, to
Mm,
being liked, and to not rocking the boat.
mhm,
And it really truly does cost us progress. And that progress can
mm,
be many things. It can be progress in our politics and our elections, and therefore
mm,
the healthcare we do or don't get, the
mhm,
food that we do or don't get, right?
mhm,
Those are real costs to real people's real everyday lives when we
mm,
choose to play nice as opposed to nerve of saying the quiet
mm,
parts out loud, challenging, disrupting, or even just asking bigger questions of all of these norms and these systems. Who do they serve and
mm,
do they still serve
mm,
us? And if
mhm,
they don't, what can we do to create something new together?
mm,
The cost is too great. I really do think it is a tax on our humanity and on our
mhm,
dignity. We lose something when we shrink ourselves to go along to get
mhm,
along. And I
mhm.
don't think that's what we're meant to do and who we're meant to be.
Yeah, yeah. Gosh, the nerve, that's so visceral as an alternative, right? And it really makes me think like from my one neuroscience class that I didn't pursue, but the idea of like the myelin covering the nerves,
Hmm.
right? It's like that's the nice that and it's not kind, it's not connected, it's not that lovely human interaction. Nice. We all know, like, I don't know, I think everyone on the planet makes this face around, she's really nice.
Nice. Like,
Nice
that's
and
not
nice.
how I want to be described.
No,
That's not
nobody
how I
wants to
want
be
to be
described that
remembered.
way. No.
No.
And
Uh-uh.
so that's what it is about subtracting. It's not about polite even or
Mm.
civil or, those are all fine things to do,
Different
I would
versions.
say. But yeah, yeah,
They're not
yeah.
action. And
So
that's what I
good.
think nerve is more about. It's moving from awareness to action. And
Mm,
there is a huge difference between nice and kind that also comes up
mm,
for people a
mm-hmm.
lot, other than mean. Kind is the next thing they ask me, well, what's the difference between nice and kind? And
Yeah.
I always go back to a tweet I saw in 2015 where someone said the difference between nice and kind is the difference between a Californian and a New Yorker. And I am a native Californian and I agree. They said, let's say you're cold outside and you forget your jacket. You're walking around and you go, oh my gosh, I'm so cold. A Californian will go, oh, it's so sad that you're so cold. I'm sorry. And then keep pushing. A New Yorker might look at you and say, you're stupid. I cannot believe you left the house without a jacket on. What is wrong with you? Are you trying to freeze to death? And then they will take their jacket off and hand it to you. And to me, that's the difference between nice and
Yeah.
kind. Even with nerve, kind is still the aim. And so kind is about action. It's
Mm-hmm.
not just, oh, I'm so sorry. It's not just empathy. It's not just nice words. It's let me solve your problem. So yeah, was the New
Hmm.
Yorker a little rough with you and how they said it?
Of
Sure.
course.
But are you cold? No. Problem solved. And that's
Yeah.
the kind of world I want to live in. I'm not
Yeah.
outside in the cold freezing.
Right.
So,
Here's to that.
nerve,
With lots of
nerve.
sorries piling up around me to not keep me warm or cut down the wind chill at
Exactly.
all. Turns out. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nice won't
Love
keep you
that.
warm, people.
No, no, sorry, does not insulate anything. Um, so you know my thing, I talk about leading in 3D and this multi-dimensional approach to success in life, right? And so we have me, my holistic well-being, all the things that are me, we, which is team and family, work and family, and then world, that broader piece. And so you've talked, we can all picture the scene with your daughter and what a friggin' amazing human you're raising. Thank you for that. And then, I can imagine some leadership stuff. And if you want, throw that in at work. But I'm really curious to hear these two others. Again, I think you have some personal experience around the me and what
Yeah.
this has meant for you coming from that place. I'm never going to forget. Don't put a question mark where God put I mean, that is, or your parents, obviously, equal footing. So as growing up in that and now who you are, maybe it's the me part, or I hear you, all of your thinking about the world part, right? Not the whole world, but that broader societal level. Where does this fit in these three dimensions?
I think for the we part, I go back to even that moment with Ketanji Brown Jackson
Mm-hmm.
because I think about Cory Booker, and there was another politician or elected whose name I don't recall. But what they did in that moment, they saw what was happening, what Ted Cruz and others were doing, and they stepped in,
Mm-hmm.
right? They rallied to protect, to literally look Ketanji Brown Jackson in the eyes and say, I see you, I see what's happening, and this isn't okay. And that, for me, that's a lot of the we part of none of us do life alone, and we certainly don't
Yeah.
do this work of subtracting or impact or whatever we're trying to accomplish with our purpose alone. And the we part is, taking action in partnership or on behalf of others when
Mm-hmm.
you have the power to do so,
Mm-hmm.
right? People often ask me, well, nerve feels so big. And when they hear nerve, they often think, turning over tables, throwing the
Mm-hmm.
tea into the water, burning things down. And sometimes that's the nerve we need. But in the day to day, it's often the micro actions of the thing you can control in your world. And to me, that's the we part is what is it's also me. It's me and we,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
what is the part you have in the equation that you can control that align to your talents to be a part of creating a better world that we can all experience? And
Yeah.
as each of us do that, those ripple effects, and you also model the behavior for others, which is a part of which creates a new and different world we all get to experience because we have a new way of being. So those are some of the things that come to my mind is we all have power to do something. Please find your something, do it with people, and that's what creates what we need more of.
Totally. Totally. Here, here. That's exactly that. I always advertise to people like when you make these micro actions, micro choices,
Hmm.
whatever they may be, right? Checking in with somebody actually before a meeting or
Right?
having grace for a lateness or not beeping in traffic, whatever. You are doing them, and that is better than you not doing them. And you
Yes.
model them. So it's such immediate, like
Hmm.
bonus, that
Yes.
yeah, sometimes it's harder feels harder to do, or it's not the default mode that we've created, especially
Right?
in the last few months.
Hmm.
But
But
it has it piles up. It's so real. It's not nothing. It's not, well, that's just, it's
that's
whatever your
right.
workplace is. And if your workplace is like the federal government and the Supreme Court, then yeah, that is maybe bigger scale. But we all
Sure.
don't work there. Some of us work
That's
in
right.
three person companies, and it matters there as well. So
It does. It
yeah,
does. There's no action too small. I want people
yeah.
to remember that those micro actions they add up and it matters to someone. Even
Hmm.
if it only impacts one person,
Yeah.
remove the word only. It impacted one person.
Right.
Hold that.
Congratulations. Yeah, yeah,
Congrats. Yes, keep
yeah,
doing it. And do it for
yeah,
another one and another one and another one. Keep going.
totally, totally. So what, again, I could just keep diving in so much deeper
I
here, but
know.
we'll hold it there and leave everyone wanting more to go order your book and read it and get back to you and let you know everything they think and learned. Um, but to close, what has this idea of subtracting niceness done for you as a human?
Oh my gosh, it has been transformative. I think lately, the best way I've loved describing it is around something I send my daughter off with every single
Mm,
day. So
mm,
I mentioned at the top of the call a little bit of how I grew up. I didn't grow up with permission to be bold. I grew up in a bubble that taught me to fear women, especially women who don't
uh,
go quietly, who take up space, who have opinions that can't be contained. And my world was so small, and that
mm,
lesson was nice girls are protected,
mm,
brave girls are punished. And I
mm,
refuse to pass that message on to my daughter or to anyone. So every morning, I send my 12-and-a-half-year-old off into the world with one line. I tell her, don't do anything I wouldn't do, which isn't much. And it's not sarcasm. It's not a joke. I'm serious. It is a permission slip, a permission to live with nerve and not fear. Like in that
mm,
moment when CBS asked her how Ted Cruz made her feel, and that little 9-year old looked straight on and said, Ted Cruz is a bastard, my mother heart said, she's a girl who's never going to shrink. I've done my job. I can wrap
yeah,
it up and leave.
yeah,
So don't do anything I wouldn't do, which, isn't much. And that's what it's done for me. I live bravely,
mm,
and I know that the world is waiting to know me, and I
mm.
go out there and I let them know.
So beautiful. What a mic drop to end on. Thank you so much, Amira. So much fun. Good luck with all the rest of the book. May it get as widely and farly read as it deserves to.
Thank you. Thanks for being in conversation with me. I appreciate it.
So much fun. Thanks.